project today using the Canal Walk Stamp. We're going to do a round easel card. So what I've done is folded an A4 sheet in half, used the large circle die to cut out the shape, making sure that I leave a hinge on the top. So what we're going to do is, on the top, we're just going to fold one side of it back on itself so that we can find the midpoint, and then just burnish that down. Now, sorry this video went in quite quick. When I was rendering the images, the first part of this video was corrupt, so I was just talking about the stamp set itself, which is called Canal Walk. So anyway, so that's what we need to do to create our easel card, but we're also going to need another circle. So I'm going to use the same die that I used for the card base, and then just going to tape this down to white cardstock, and then I'm going to put this through my electronic die cutting machine. So you can put this through a manual machine if you want. So when we have this piece cut out, then we are going to fix this to the front of that card. What we need to do is, under our crease line, we're going to add some glue. Don't put any glue on the upper part of the crease line. So put the glue down, and then we're going to line up this circle over it, edge to edge. So make sure it's aligned up with the bottom edge piece, and then just smooth that down. And then what will happen is we're going to fold our card back the way it was, and you will see then how this works as a pop-up. So fold the card in half, but then when you fold along the line again, you will actually have a full circle as your pop-up. So that's just your card base. Very simple to do. You can do this with any shape easel card. So if you have any nesting dies, rectangular, square, anything at all, heart, you can do the same thing. Okay, so our stamp set here is the Canal Walk, and I'm going to stamp this out, and then we are going to cut it later. So bringing in a piece of card, so this is A5 size, putting it down. I'm using the magnets. You can use tape if you prefer, because I know sometimes these magnets are hard to maneuver if you can't grip them, so use your tape. So removing the carrier sheets from the stamp, pulling the sheet away from the stamp, not the other way around, so as not to distort the stamp in any way, but they're quite strong, so it will take a lot. So placing this down, I want it in the center, because we are going to be cutting this out in a circular shape again, so make sure there's plenty of space all around it. So press this down just so we can lift the stamp, and then we're going to ink it. I'm going to use the Stays On black ink pad. This is perfect if you're going to be using water-based colours, because it won't bleed when you're or colouring with your watercolours and your brushes. So stamping, adding a good bit of ink to the stamp. You might need to press more than once to get a sharp image, depending on how much ink is on your pad. So I've loaded that up, going to press it down, back over where we were, pressing in the center, giving it a good press down to make sure I get all the edges. You could stand up doing that if you prefer. I've actually hopped forward a bit because I added more ink so that I could get a stronger impression. I think it's time I got a new ink pad, but you can get refills for these pads, which are great value for money. So popping that to the side, which I'll clean and put back on the carrier sheet at a later stage. The die set there, was going to use it, but it just stuck to the end of my stamping pad, so got carried in there. So finding the die that I had used as my base, I'm getting a die that is smaller, because this is going to be an insert. So placing this over the stamped image, just having a look at what way it would work. Right, so we have 3 dies here now, so this is getting smaller again because we're going to be doing layers. So the larger die did our card bases. The next size down is what we're using for our layer of patterned paper, so we need a smaller die again right over our image. So I'm going to cut this out before I colour it, because I want the colour to go right up to the edge, but because we're cutting away so much, it just saves a little bit of time on colouring. again, I'm just going to pop this through the die cutting machine. That image on the back there is just an earlier stamping attempt, so you can use either side of the card, so waste not, want not. And don't worry if you're stamping and it doesn't go right, you can just do another piece, because it's only a piece of paper at the end of the day. So just make sure you colour the right side. So taking out my stamped image there now, so we know what's the bad side and what's the good side. Unless you're doing a flipper card, then you can stamp on both sides. So we're going to take the die off now, and we're just going to make some room on our table, because we need to, it's best to leave them stacked there. It'll give you an indication then of what sizes that you're going for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to colour my image first. So this is the Zealer watercolour caddy, you see it here. So there's 24 colours in this watercolour set. It does come with watercolour brushes in the pack. I don't really use them when I'm at home. They're really only throwing them out and about. So I'm just going to use my regular paintbrushes for doing this project. So I'm going to tape down just to stop it moving really around, just barely touching the edges with the tape, because tape can pull away paper, but it's just something to keep it in place. You could put a sheet of paper down underneath it to catch any off spill, but I'm going to live a bit dangerously today. So we're going to start with the water. So wetting the brush, take off the excess, and then we're going to come in with our paints. Okay, so what we do, will we go with the sky maybe, or we go with the water? Well, the sky is going to be a bit lighter than the water. So I'm going to bring in the palette, I'm going to put the paint down, and then I am going to maybe add a little bit more water to that, just to water it down further, because I want to put a light colour wash down first. That'll be my background, and then I can load up on colour after that. So starting, yeah, that's a nice light colour. So basically just putting down a light colour wash. So going back to the palette, loading it in there just to bring it around, working my way around the clouds to try and keep them white. Now if you have masking fluid, you could put the masking fluid down on the areas where you want them to remain white, but because it's such a small area that I'm painting, I'm just going to go freehand with this. So I'm working my way up to the edge, going over the edges a little. I think that's a nice light base colour. Working my way around. You could use a bigger brush if you wanted, but because of the fine detail around the tops of the trees and the roof and the clouds, I'm going in with the medium sized brush. Bring a bit more water into the palette, and if it dries out on the palette, don't worry, just dampen your brush and go back over it, and it'll reactivate the paint, and it's very easy to wash away as well then when you're finished. Okay, just working my way down, looking for any pieces or areas that I might have missed. I think we're nearly there now with the sky in the base layer. So I'm just going to clean the brush, take off any excess water from that as well, and a little bit of water on the tip, and I'm going to go into the darker colours here. Now this is a green, so I'm going to do this with the trees. So this is the mid-tone, just add a little bit of colour to the foliage. This is just a base. I'm going to go back in then later on with a darker tone, just to add some shade and shadow. But I'm getting my base layers down so that they can dry before I come in with the darker tones. And in the background we have some fields as well. Now you can play around with the fields here. Maybe add a little bit of brown to some of it and a little bit of green. So this is the darker green colour now, and I'm going around the edges of the trees, so this is where, you know, we'd have a bit of shadow, and just blending that in with the base colour, adding that in, coming back in then with a little bit of a lighter colour, going down onto some of the hedgerows. See, there's some little hedges there against the wall. And sure, if you make a mistake, just wet your brush, dab it off, go back in, wet the painted area again, lift it off with a piece of kitchen roll. I'm going to go in now with some browns. So put this down on the palette. It's a bit dry, so I'm just touching up anywhere where there would be like woodwork or leaves, and adding a little bit of shading as well to the little hedges. My way there, doing the tree trunks, and as I said, the fields in the back, just adding a little bit, because some would be ploughed, some would be sown, some would be still green, so it's just playing around with the backgrounds, getting different looks. And of course you could do these and add snow scenes to them as well, and I'm doing a spring summer, but you know, use your imagination and play around, do autumn tones, do summer tones, spring, as I said, snow for Christmas. You could. Now, we're working our way now, so like little colour wash on any remaining greenery areas there under the hedge. And then we're coming in with a darker, and right there, yeah. So just getting all, work the colours together as you can, and then as I said, sit back, take a look, and if you're not happy you can go in and add some dark tones, or go back in with just a wet brush and lighten up the areas. So using the mid-tone brown now, putting that down on the palette here because it's a little bit thick, so I'm just watering that down, and then coming in again to more of the trees. This is just giving a bit more shading to the trunks, and over to the other side. So I think it's looking pretty good so far. Dab it down. Yep. Okay. So just keep the brush clean between colours. Then what we're going to do is we're going to bring in a really fine point brush here, and I'm going to pick up the light red and just see what that looks like. Yeah, so it's kind of a pinky colour, and then we're going to start on our barge. So like we did with the greenery and like we did with the sky, we're going to put down a light colour wash over the area first, and then we can come back in with a darker tone to add shading and shadow to that. So working along the barge there. I've never been on a canal boat, something I would love to do. I'm sure that they're very relaxing, especially if you can just park them up along the canal at a lovely pub like that and sit out and relax for the day. Okay, that's the paintwork, and then working my way between the windows. Just blending in any white areas like that. Okay. Now it's a fine pointed brush as well, so it does actually carry a lot of paint on it, even though it is smaller. And then bottom of the barge here. So we're going to do a couple of colours on the bottom of the barge. We're going to start with the colour wash of the light red. I'm just going to draw that down along the body of the barge that's in the water. Drawing it down, see? And by just adding water, you can spread the colour goes a long way. So make sure all these red areas, you know, that if there's any white, touching them up. It's there. So there's a few colours that we're going to be using on this barge because it has a tarpaulin on it, and it has the fenders, etc. Now we're going to go with the deepest of the red colours. So there's a pink and there's 3 reds. So this is the deepest, but it's more of like a magenta. You can see the difference in the tone there, and I'm actually just mixing a bit of the red with the magenta, and then going back in where we would have some shades and shadows, and just adding that in there just to give a point of difference to the colour. But because we mixed the magenta with the red there, the tones seem to blend together quite well. So starting at the front, working my way down. So down around near the water line it will be a little bit darker. A little bit off the roof and down the sides. Again, working my way over to the edge of the page. So even if you're not an experienced watercolourist, a set like this is absolutely brilliant for starting out and trialling it. This is made by Zealer, and in the UK, bertandgertz.co.uk are the stockists of these watercolour pads, and they're available on their website, so I'd recommend it to get one for your crafty kit. It'll have so many uses for this. Okay, so now we're going to go in with some darker colours. Okay, so we're going to get some browns here. I want to water it down because I'm just doing the canvas colour of the barge. So we're just putting first like kind of khaki colours onto it. So the more you water it down, the lighter the tone goes, and the drier you use the brush, the darker. So you might just have like one colour, but the different tones that you can get from that one colour. So even though you've only 24 colours in the pad, and don't forget you can mix and match the colours as well to bring up new hues and tones. So working away on the barge, see, adding a little bit of darkness to the front of it, give it a weathered look, a well-worn look, like this canal boat has been on the water for many years. Then using a wet brush to blend the two tones together. I think that's looking great now. Okay, so that's our canvas on it. A little bit more on the front. So we have our fenders at the front and our bumper, so I'm using the darker tone, and I'm going to go in with that as well. I'm going to dab it back because I think we want to go a bit darker. So as I said in my other videos, this is part of the Country Walk collection, a selection of stamps and MDF embellishments that are available to buy on Hobby Maker TV or through bertandgertz.co.uk, and I'll put information and links down in the comments for you. But all these tutorials are for those who have bought the stamps, but I do have plenty of other YouTube videos for my Digi shop. Products available through Etsy and shortly through Bert and Gertz for your digital downloads. So I'd love you to show some love, and if you could subscribe to this channel, because there'll be a lot more content coming, and I just enjoy sharing my crafting with you. Okay, we're going to go in now. I have a bit of black and some blue, so I've put the black down first, but then I'm on the front of the barge, and then I'm just using the light blue colour wash here to do the plastic in the tarpaulin and in the windows. A little bit more of the light blue, bring it onto the palette, and the palette, because watercolour, give it a rinse under the tap and cleans off nice before you put it back in the packaging. So finishing touches to the barge there. I think it's looking pretty nifty. And then we're going to do the windows as well. While we're doing the windows of the barge, we might as well do the windows of the pub as well. So there's a little pub house there, and nearly done now with that. So for the walls, I think I'm going to leave the paintwork of the little pub in white. We still have to do the stonework of the walls of the canal, and we have to do the roof of the pub as well. So get some darker blue, put that down on the palette, water it down. Now because the water is going to be a deeper colour than the sky, we're actually going to start off with the darker shade, water down as our colour wash, and literally just going to flood, excuse the pun, just flood the whole image, being careful of the swans. If you have masking fluid, you could go ahead and put the masking fluid down to protect the little swans, or come back in later on with a whiteout pen. So working our way around the swans and down to the water. So this is the base layer basically that I'm putting down, and I'll come back in with shadow. So what I'll do is I'm just going to speed things up a little bit for you here while I put down the colour wash. Okay, so we've added our blue to the water, and now we're going to move on to our roofs and the brickwork. So I'm taking them off the dark grey, putting it on the palette and watering it down, and then putting a wash right across the roof spaces and the little annex onto it. We have a stone wall in the background, so we just touch up those areas right around the greenery we did earlier. And then of course we have our canal wall, so putting down a base wash for that, working our way right up to the edge. There we go. Coming in with a little bit of the black. I'm going to use a little fine point brush for this part. So as I said, just re-wet the paint on the palette and it reactivates it. Then I'm going to add some shading to areas, under the canal wall lip and onto the bricks that are down in the canal wall, just to give it a little bit of dimension. And you can go back over this with a wet brush later to blend it in more. Up on the roof then we're going to give it some of the shading and weathering look as well. So working away along the edges, not forgetting that we have our little annex to the side there, and a little more shading because the house is giving it a bit more of a shadow. And then we have our little details on this, like our little down pipes over the water. And then we're going to come in and a little bit more there down to the side, just the finishing touches. That's the beauty of the small fine point brushes. You can add your finer details there, a little bit under the roof. Then we have a bit of a wall to the side. I'm going to extend out the grey colour there to fill the gap. You can go back in with a fine liner pen and add more detail to the stamp there if you just want to spread that out a bit more, but you don't have to. I just do put the colour in because you're going to be adding floral decorations to this later that will actually going to cover that area. Our little umbrellas, going to give it a little bit of bright yellow there just to make them stand out a bit more in the behind the roof, looking lovely. Right, so what we need to do now is we're going to concentrate on adding a bit of shading. So we'll come back in with the orange. We're going to do the beaks of the swans as well very quickly and add a little bit there now. Okay, make sure your brushes are cleaned as you go. They will discolour with the paint, but that's natural, so don't worry about that. Okay, so we're going to work now on the footpaths. So putting the colour wash down on the palette because I want to water it down and build up colour. So starting here, that's nice, yeah. So a nice light sandy colour is what I'm going for. So filling in the areas there of the footpath. Of course we have a bit more area in the background there, the entrance to the car park and the ground. So filling in the gaps. And what you can do then is if you find that your umbrellas are blending in, you can go back over the umbrellas and colour them. Back to our fields at the back there, putting in a little bit of this colour as well. Make it look like there's a little bit of barley going on there in the back fields. Clean it off. So I should have said view of Diddley Squat Farm in the background. Okay, so now I'm just really filling in the gaps on the sides with some colour. As I said, I'm going to be covering these two, the both opposite edges with embellishments later, but just to finish it off. We're nearly there now. We'll just fill in any more of the land in the background. So this is our mid-tone green that I'm putting in. Look for any gaps in it, and I think we're nearly there now, guys. We're nearly there with our painted image. Go back in there, just extend the wall. Now that's a bit watery, so what I'm going to do is just clean off the brush, get a fine point brush, show you what I'm going to do now. As I was saying about filling in areas, I'm going to go in now with the magenta colour again, and I'm going to the front door of the pub. So this is a quite finicky little area, so the fine point brush is perfect for this. Just so it gives us a point that blends in with the canal boat, just to try and draw both your eye to both of those. Excuse the pun, with both. Right, and then a little bit of orange on the umbrellas, I think, just to make them stand out a little bit more. A little bit of orange shading. And we have 3 little umbrellas. I'd love to be sitting out there now, I can tell you. Okay, so I'm going to come in then with the dark colour, a little bit more shading, I think. It's a bit of detail there, so this is a dark kind of a blue on the curtains of the barge. Fill those in, and just to take a little look now what we're doing. So I think, yeah, I'm happy with that now. So what we're going to do is we're just going to, I'll wash this palette later on, but I just want to get it out of the way, and then we are going to take off the masking tape very gently. I don't want to rip the paper. There we go. Pull that back, and I'm going to give you a little look, a little bit of a closer look at that. So that's our disc, and that is ready for us now to put on our project. So what I'm going to do is, we have the easel card shape that we made earlier, and I have my cut image, but I need to put a background in here. So using the mid-size die, as you can see, right, so it fits over there. You have about 5mm to the edge of your card base, and then you have the topper that we've just done. So I'm using this die on this sheet of paper. It's called a Hi There by Paper Addicts. Absolutely love this pad. So we're just going to trim it down. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to cut out a square out of it, but I do need 2. So very roughly, just going along with the craft knife, because I'm going to put this through the die cutting machine. So we'll cut the first one, but we are going to cut 2. One for the outside and one for the inside of the card. So putting some masking tape around the edges of the die, taking care not to touch the centre of the paper because it might rip, and then putting this through the die cutting machine, and then speeding it up a little bit. Here's the 2 that I've done, but I want to make sure that when I put them down that they fit, so happy with that. But I want to also make sure that I have some dimensions. So what I'm going to do is, as a point of difference, I'm going to use a black ink pad, and I'm literally just going to lightly rub this around the edge of the paper. So what this does is, when it's layered up on your project, it just gives it a little lift, separates the papers and gives you that look of dimension. So we're going to do both. This is just a water-based ink pad because we're not putting any watercolours near it. It's just a quick drying water-based one. You see, just rubbing it around the edge, and because the circular nesting dies that I used had a scalloped edge, I think they are from Tonic. Thinking back now, that they have plain edge ones and they have the scalloped ones. Don't know whether you can still get them, but if you look up Tonic Studios, you can have a search there and see if they have these still in stock. I do have them a while though. Okay, so we're going to take the top one and just double checking, and you can see there that it looks like it has a good bit of dimension on it. I've just used foam pads to place it on it, and then we have our card. So we're going to open it up and we're going to just glue down this paper on the inside. So using the fine point glue applicator, add the glue all around the edges, a little bit in the middle. A little bit goes a long way. And then we're going to line it up, so I'm going to have the waves going in a straight line. So that ahoy there pad, I got that actually in the Range in the UK, so you can have a check for that. I got that not too long ago. Just have to remember now where I bought it. So close that over, and then when we do our easel pop-up, you'll be able to see the paper underneath. Okay, so now we're going to put our topper on. So again, just flipping it over, adding our glue about 5-10 millimeters from the edge, so that when you press it down the glue doesn't come out and go everywhere. You could use foam pads if you want, but I've already used foam pads on the topper that we've coloured. So line that up in the centre, pop that down. Look how quick and easy this is, guys. So add that up. Right, now, so when your card is assembled, you'll notice the fold. But what we're going to have to do is we're going to need to put a stopper to stop this card from closing. So in this area is where I'm going to put my sentiment. So back to the circular dies and the stamp set. I'm going to go with the Happy Birthday Dad. We also have Happy Father's Day and Wishing You a Wonderful Day, but I'm going to go with the Happy Birthday Dad. Just going to stamp this down on white cardstock using the water-based ink pad, and then you're just making sure there's nothing underneath it or on top, placing that in the centre. And then, like with my other project there, the Stonebridge card, which is another video here on my channel, I've got the two circular nesting dies. I'm going to use the smaller one over the sentiment to cut that out, and the bigger one is going to go over the pattern paper. So I'm just going to put some masking tape down to hold that in place, stop it moving. Masking on the outside of the die so it doesn't rip the sentiment. Then for the paper, then the back of this I like, and just for contrast I'm actually going to use the back of this sheet as the mat for my sentiment. So again, just going to tape this down and then put it through the die cutting machine. Okay, so pop them down and then pop them through, and voila, here's our two cut pieces. And then, like I did with the other layers, just going to rub around the edges with the ink pad. It's very simple. You could actually do this with a glue pad and then dip it in embossing powder or dip it in glitters and allow it to dry if you want it. I just like the look, and it saves on cardstock too if you don't want to put a black matte layers down on your project. So that's, as I said, we're going to use the back. What I'm going to do is we're going to fix that with a bit of the liquid glue this time, because I think I'm going to tilt it, yeah, I'll put it at an angle. So I'm putting this direct down, manoeuvring it about a bit just to make sure it's in the centre, but we'll use a foam pad then on the back of this to fix it to the inside of the card. And if you're writing a sentiment on this, you can just flip it right over and write your message inside the card. So we're going to pop this in, so push back, line it up, see where you want to put it. Just going to manoeuvre it about, I think about there. I'd be happy with that. And because it's on a foam pad, it's raised up, so it's a great stopper. So just press that down and there you have it. That holds your card up. I'll just lift it up a little bit just to, so you can have a little bit of a better look of the stamp. So I think that's looking pretty nifty. So as you can see there, that's what the card looks like when it stands. So that part then, the V underneath, the fold underneath, that's where you can write your best wishes and the message. So let's finish this off with a few embellishments. As I said, because the stamp doesn't quite go to the edges, we're going to just fill those areas. So these are some petaloo flowers that I had and some 3D gel. So just going to arrange some flowers on the left and the right there. So 2 on that side. Then we work away on the other side. So I think we'll add another couple more. I don't want to overcrowd it either, you know, to hide that beautiful stamp and all the colouring that's been done. So put in a few little ones. And then you'll see there on the mat I have an MDF swan. That's also part of my MDF collection, available from burtongertz.co.uk. Details will be down in the comments. So they come on sheets, and you'll get trees, you'll get swans, you'll get arches, you'll get cottages, everything that kind of correlates with this Country Walk stamp collection you'll be able to find there as well. So I think we'll put the swan in the water with the others. What do you think? So a little bit of 3D gel. All I did to colour that was a white ink pad. You could glitter it up, of course, or dip it in white embossing powder and heat emboss it. A little flower detail. Yeah, I think we'll add one of those there. Give her that. And then on the inside, don't want to go too mad because you want to be able to fold the card and put it into an envelope. So I think we'll just add one here. Pop that down. Let's hold that in place. There, and just take a look at that then. Yeah, I think that's enough. Yeah, we'll put one here, will we? We'll go big or go home. Kind of hides the sentiment, but we'll go with a little white one just to finish it off. There. So that silicone gel will harden in about 15 minutes, so just leave it aside to dry. But there you have it. There is our Canal Walk easel card from the Country Walk collection, available through burtongertz.co.uk. Thanks for watching.